Trey Gowdy. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Do you agree with your colleague that your committee has been tainted?
No, ma'am. What I want our committee to start doing is working, which is interviewing witnesses and accessing documents. And all of this politics, I'm sure, is interesting to the viewer. But if you want to find out those 4 tranches, those investigative tranches with respect to Russia, we need to start interviewing witnesses and accessing documents and let the politics kind of go away.
Isn't that the problem right there? I mean, as you've just spelled it out. Because of everything that's going on with Chairman Nunes, everything has been stalled this week. In fact, one of your Democratic colleagues, Jim Himes, says that you're in deep freeze mode. Doesn't that tell you that he needs to recuse himself?
Well, I'm smiling because I don't know when Congress not doing something for a week was deep freeze mode. That's not unusual up here that we would have a week where we didn't have a whole lot to show for it.
But you were scheduled. Hold on one second, Congressman. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you were scheduled to do interviews and to hold hearings. Sally Yates was supposed to appear, Jim Comey. But that, for whatever reason, Chairman Nunes indefinitely postponed it or canceled it. So what's going on?
Well, I think that for whatever reason, it's really important. You saw the hearing last Monday where almost 100 times the 2 witnesses said, I cannot answer in this forum. So why you would go back to a forum where the seminal witnesses can't answer the question is befuddling to me. I want to talk to Sally Yates. Sally Yates is an important fact witness. We're going to talk to Sally Yates. The fact that we didn't do it this Tuesday doesn't mean we're not going to do it next Tuesday.
But why didn't you do it this Tuesday?
We're about a week behind. We're about a week behind. But if we start next week, we can catch up.
I hear you, but you could have done it in a closed meeting. Why not do it this week?
I think it's important that we talk to Comey and Rogers again first. They really are, Allison, the 2 most important witnesses, at least with 3 of the 4 tranches. And when you answer 100 times, I can tell you, but I can't tell you in this forum, then why would you not bring back the 2 seminal witnesses to say, okay, we're in a different forum. Answer those almost 100 questions, and then we'll move to Clapper, and then we'll move to Brennan, and then we'll move to Ms. Yates. Okay. That is the natural chronology, and that's what I hope we do.
You make a great point. Why didn't it happen this week in a closed forum? It was scheduled, and then it was canceled.
Well, you mean Rogers and Comey. I think it's really important that we talk to them again. I'm not to their calendars. They came last Monday. Perhaps they could not come this week, but it is, in my judgment, indispensable that we talk to the 2 seminal witnesses again, see what questions they can ask. That's then going to lead to different questions for Ms. Yates and Brennan and Clapper. So there's always a natural chronology in an investigation. I like to go chronologically. I like to start with the seminal witnesses, and then they can identify other witnesses. I don't know what Director Comey and Admiral Rogers scheduled. They're 2 really important, busy guys. The fact that they could not come back-to-back weeks before Congress and spend 6 hours before us does not surprise me. But I expect them to come, and I expect them to come quickly.
And so Congressman, if Chairman Nunes shared sensitive information with the very source of the investigation, meaning the president and the White House, doesn't that compromise him?
Well, you're making an assumption that I don't make. Actually,
what do
you're
you think he should? Well, I mean, look, let me be clear. We know he went to the White House and told the president something.
Right, and we have no idea it has anything to do with Russia. In fact, Devin has said it had absolutely nothing to do with Russia. So if the new rule is that the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee cannot share information with the commander-in-chief, we're in a whole new world, Allison. If that's the new rule, Devin says it had nothing to do with Russia. I have no reason to doubt him. So if it's got nothing to do with Russia, then no, the White House is not the target of the investigation.
Mm-hmm. Have you asked Chairman Nunes what he was doing, why he did this?
I have, and he reminded me of what I did in a former life, where I relied on sources. I had a federal witness killed that I relied on, and I'm not over-dramatizing this, but you do protect your sources. You do it in your line of work. Devin has to do it. They're blowers. There are other people who have relevant, authentic, credible information, and they want to share it. You protect your sources. Devin is protecting his. He's protecting it so much he's not even telling us who it is. But I would say this, Allison, shouldn't we be more interested in the authenticity and the reliability of the underlying information, whether it's the gardener or the cook or someone else? Is secondarily important. The authenticity and reliability is what's most important to me of the underlying information.
Well, sure. And so what is I mean, that's what you're trying to get to the bottom of, right? Is what are the connections? Are there these ties between the Trump campaign, the Trump team, and Russia? So how are you getting to the bottom of that?
Two separate lines of inquiry. What Devin went to the White House about has nothing to do with Russia. So put that in a separate track. I was ready yesterday to start interviewing witnesses, all of them. I want to sit down with Adam Schiff and say, Adam, give me your list of witnesses. Let's do it together. Let's interview them together. We're both former federal prosecutors. Let's find the facts and the truth together. Give me your witness list. I'll give you mine. Let's start doing it in the forum that is most conducive with gathering the most amount of information. But, Allison, the trip to the White House that Devin took had nothing to do with Russia. So let's don't conflate the trip with the investigation.
Congressman Trey Gowdy, we appreciate your insight and you being here with all that information. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Of South Carolina joins us now. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I don't really know what the purpose of all these statements from members of the committee are on both sides. I'm paying close attention. I'm totally confused. So can you just give us a quick summation of what we know for certain about spying on American citizens, including the Trump campaign?
Well, what we know is that if there is an evidence basis for the president's tweet, it has not been shared with the public. So we'll get that out of the way. The allegation was very specific. President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower.
Yes.
There is not an evidentiary basis for that. Where it gets a little more complicated is there are surveillance methodologies that allow the collection of hypothetically foreign-to-foreign communications. And to the extent that U.S. citizens are mentioned or collected in that, in those surveillance programs, they're masked. And I think you want the information collected from a national security standpoint, but the masking is important. So with General Flynn, with the public reporting is that he was unmasked. All right, that's not only a breach of protocol, that's a violation of the law. That's the felonious dissemination of classified material. What Chairman Nunes' point is, I want to know whether or not other people have been unmasked, even though you don't know about it publicly yet.
Interesting, but it would be known in the intelligence community. So my understanding from watching Director Comey is that intel agencies reporting to the Obama White House initiated an investigation of people around candidate Trump before his inauguration. Is that your understanding?
It is not, and I would be surprised if anybody could confirm that. There's a warrant process that you have to go through with the FISA court, and it has to be approved. And again, there's a public record of all of this, Tucker, which would be in the custody of the now Trump Department of Justice. So if there were an evidentiary basis for that, it's pretty easy to lay that out. There's a paper trail.
Why would Director Comey be willing to reveal the existence of some investigations but not comment on others?
That was really surprising to me. If you remember what he said, he sought special dispensation from the Department of Justice to confirm not just a counterintelligence investigation, but one that may manifest itself with criminality. But yet when I asked him about the leaks, he said he could not confirm that there was an investigation. I think they're both of national interest. One happens to be a felony. So I was a little surprised and a little disappointed that he can't at least tell us we are investigating the felonious dissemination of classified material.
And yet he can tell us other things that may suit the agendas of others. It seemed bizarre. Now, we interviewed someone on this show last week who spent 30 years at NSA, Mr. Binney, who said that there is no question that the NSA has personal communications from then-candidate Trump and those around him on its servers. Do you think that that's true?
It depends. It depends on who they're talking to. If you are talking to someone for whom the intelligence agencies are authorized to collect, then yes, you may be captured on it. If there is a reason to collect on a non-U.S. citizen and you happen to call that person, then you would be collected as a U.S. citizen. That's where the masking and treating it confidentially comes into effect.
But he was saying, and again, he worked there for all those years, that NSA collects basically all data coming in and out of the United States because they've tapped into the main data trunk. And the question is, what do they do with it? But they have it. Is that your understanding? Is that true?
I think that's a little broader than what my understanding is. You would have to get a warrant. If you're talking about U.S. citizen, you have to get a warrant, application, FISA court. If you were talking foreign to foreign, it's a separate analysis. If you're talking U.S. to foreign, it's still a separate analysis and one that would require going to the FISA court.
So my last question, you sit on the committee that oversees our intelligence agencies. Are you satisfied that if you request a specific accounting of something that you're going to get it, you're going to get a straightforward answer and get the entire answer?
I don't know that I would, Tucker, and I'm not dodging your question. There's something called the Gang of Eight. They are entitled to information that even HPSI members are not.
Members of the committee would receive that information.
Speaker of the House, the minority leader,
right,
ranking member, and the chairman of HPSI are four in the Gang of Eight. If you're just a HPSI member like I am,
I get it, but you think they can get whatever they want and they can get the full story, and the intel agencies will give it to them and feel the obligation to give it to them?
They should, and I'll only caveat it by saying should, because when one source has the information, the other's requesting it, you never know what you're not
Well,
given,
you never do know
should.
that, and that's the concern for ordinary voters like me.
Yes, sir.
Congressman
Trey Gowdy is on the House Intelligence Committee. He leads our broadcast this morning, and sir, good morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, sir.
Yesterday, the White House said the media is obsessed with the Russian story. So cut through it. Where is this going today?
Bill, we need to start interviewing witnesses and accessing documents. Those are the two things you need to find out what happened in any fact pattern. So what I would say to my friend from California, Mr. Schiff, give me your list of witnesses. Tell me who you want to talk to. I'll give you mine. Let's get started. Let's focus on the investigation. This week's been about politics. Let's go find facts, and let's do it together.
Well, Adam Schiff appeared about an hour ago, and his target was the head of the Intelligence Committee, Nunes, the Republican, when he said this, sir.
The events of last week, I think, called that so seriously into question that he really ought to recuse himself, in particular if he's raising an issue about whether members of the transition team were incidentally collected. He was a member of that team, and I think there's a real conflict of interest. So I think it would be in the best interest of the investigation going forward if somewhere else on the committee were to lead it.
Well, should he or not step down?
Well, you know, of course he shouldn't. Adam was a
should or should not?
Should not step down. Adam Schiff was a staunch supporter of Secretary Clinton while he was involved in the Benghazi investigation, and he's a staunch supporter of Secretary Clinton even after President Trump won, and nobody's calling on him to recuse himself. Devin is the chairman of House Intel, whether they like it or not. What we need to start doing is focusing on the witnesses and accessing the documents and go find the facts for our fellow citizens. This really should not be a partisan investigation. Let's start meeting with witnesses.
Well, he has said himself, Nunes has said it had nothing to do with Russia. If that's the case, why not clear it up? What's his source? What information was he given on the grounds of the White House? What's wrong with that?
Well, on the source issue, Bill, I found it really interesting. Last week, parts of the mainstream media beat the daylights out of Republicans for asking about the source of newspaper articles. And this week, all they want to know is Devin's source. Devin hasn't told me a source. Devin has said, I am protecting my source. What's really important is the information the source provided authentic, credible, and reliable. Whether it's the gardener, the cook, or somebody in the intelligence community, what difference is it who provided it? What matters to me is the information reliable and authentic?
Well, in the meantime, you were in a Republican conference yesterday. It seemed to run into overtime, and health care appeared to be back. What was the mood inside the room, and what is the status of going back to health care after the failure last Friday?
Bill, it's the most productive conference I've been a part of in the 6 years I was there. And, you know, Speaker Ryan is uniquely well qualified to be our speaker. And for him to stand up and ask those who are opposed to the bill in its current form, from a policy standpoint, tell me what your objections are. It was the most constructive conversation I have heard about health care. I wish we'd had it sooner, but it was heartening to listen to people who have policy differences try to to find out a way to get to yes.
So you're saying this is going to move forward again then? That's what I take from that answer.
Well, it depends. If the vote total is the same, it's not going to move forward. But if there are policy areas that can be resolved, if some of the no's can be brought to yes, then yeah, we'll move forward. But if we're just going to go through another exercise to reach the same vote total, we need to move on to tax reform or infrastructure.
Understood. Last point here. If you could choose your own priority, what would it be? Would it be health care or taxes or... You know, some are arguing that you need to put a victory on the board, a win on the board. I know it's only 70 days in. What would you choose, sir?
Bill, I don't want to dodge your question, but I'll say this. I've never run for president, nor will I ever run for president. I would ask President Trump, what is your priority? You're the only one in the Republican circles in the last 12 years to successfully win the Electoral College. What would you like us to start with? That'd be a pretty good place, I think, for us to take our lead.
Does that suggest that you're confused as to what his priority is right now?
I'm not. I talked to Mick Mulvaney more than I want to. I think it's health care. But if we're not going to get health care done, then let's move to infrastructure because there's a jobs component. Let's move to tax reform because I think that's my part.
You were in that conference yesterday. I don't mean to interrupt you, just in the interest of time here. I mean, what seemed to be the consensus of three major items you just listed there?
Healthcare. Let's see if we can do healthcare because we have a window with reconciliation, which I know is an arcane word, but it's an important word. We have a window with reconciliation that is going to close. So it's not that it's more important, it's more time sensitive that we do healthcare. So let's see if we can go back and get that right.